Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. Barbados tourist arrival numbers continue to climb to new heights. The Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association says overall long-stay arrivals increased by 6.46% for the first 10 months of this year. This information was revealed by BHTA CEO Rudy Grant during the organization's fourth quarterly general meeting at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center.
The major growth was in the USA market, 14.2%. Canada was 9.8%. And we saw the United Kingdom somewhat flat, a growth of 0.7%. Trinidad and Tobago growing by 7.3%, and other Caribbean growing by 4.9%.
Mr. Grant says the increased numbers resulted in growth in occupancy levels for hotels.
In 2016 and in January of 2017, we would have seen some softening in relation to the luxury properties. We would have participated in collaboration with the BTMI with specific strategies, and those strategies have obviously resulted in growth taking place in the luxury segment of the market. As it relates to the A and B class, our internal surveys show that that is presently flat, but our anticipation is that we will see a slight growth there, and that is because we have been observing a lot of late bookings coming in the market.
Well, there is concern tonight about the uneven playing field in the hotel industry when it comes to granting concessions. And the veteran hotelier is warning that, if not addressed, it could drive local owners out of business. This was one of the points made during the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association's fourth quarterly general meeting at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center. Ken Jerson was there and filed this report.
The BHTA meeting included a panel discussion highlighting some of the challenges facing industry players and possible solutions. One of the persons raising concern about the level of concessions granted to foreign investors is veteran hotelier Gordon Seal.
You will effectively knock out a lot of the local successful hoteliers like myself. The chances of us being able to survive a continued assault of that type are very, very slim.
Mr. Seal also points out the money made by locally owned properties remains in Barbados.
All of our profits at Sand Acres, Bougainvillea, and Sugar Bay come into this island and remain in this island. That is not so of many of these other large investors that will come in.
That's not the case, he says, with foreign-owned properties.
I don't know what percentage of them will go out, but when we're talking about the loss of foreign exchange to Barbados, surely profits being sent out of Barbados go out in foreign exchange.
Responding to these points is Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Tourism Investment Incorporated, Stuart Lane. He contends local players should not see each other as competition.
Tourism is something that happens in the external environment, and there is so much business. Barbados has such a small fraction of the tourism business globally that there's no way that we're going to be, I don't want to use the word cannibalized, but I can't think of a better word. We're not going after each other. We should be going after the external environment and not each other.
Mr. Stewart also addresses the notion that Barbados is losing a lot of foreign exchange through repatriated profits to overseas investors after providing them with substantial concessions.
If I brought 250 million US in, then I should be able to take something out. So it is not that you're draining the country because what you take out can only be a fraction of what you brought in.
He goes on to say those hotels also contribute significantly through paying wages as well as buying local products and services. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
In more tourism news, though not directly affected by the ongoing sewage problem on the island's south coast, Sandals Barbados is concerned about what's taking place. Public Relations Manager David Hines says Sandals sympathizes with residents and businesses and stands ready to assist, given the importance of the environment to the hotel sector.
If the solution is coming, we can be a part of it. I know there's a town hall meeting that we're supposed to be scheduled. Once we're invited and we're there, we're willing to listen, and if there's any way we can assist through the foundation or volunteers or anything like that, of course we'll be willing to help our friends in the area.
Following the issue of an abatement notice on December 1st, which required the closure of the dump at Lower Estates in George, the Ministry of Health is continuing to monitor and give advice in respect of the public health threat. According to Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George, there has been no further dumping at the site since the abatement order was issued. He says the priority now is to contain the possible environmental health risk as the site continues to smolder. As a result, he says the ministry and the Barbados Fire Service are working with the owner of the quarry to ensure the fire threat is contained. Dr. George is advising people with respiratory illnesses, including asthma, to avoid the area. He says residents who may experience symptoms should seek medical attention at the Winston Scott Polyclinic or the Accident and Emergency Department of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. We now turn to the Upper House and hear that Minister of Labor, Senator Dr. Esther Bayar-Suku, says the Criminal Record Rehabilitation Offenders Bill before the Senate is about giving people with criminal records a chance to start over. While recognizing that it's not easy for ex-offenders, she says there are a number of factors to address in order for Barbados to reduce the rate of recidivism.
Madam President, when a person is unemployed, much less unemployable, it creates challenges, financial challenges, social challenges. One may have a family, Madam President, that one is not able to provide for. And then we have seen where this can lead to the recidivism that we are observing in our society. Because when a man is down on his luck and he cannot find any way of providing for himself, unfortunately, too many times that person returns to the crime.
Senator Bayar-Suku wants employers to give ex-offenders who are rehabilitated a chance. Families are also said to be integral to the process.
When these persons come out of prison, the family will embrace them. Oh, we're so glad to have you home. You know, come, you can stay at me, come back home, your room is still here, etc., etc. And that lasts for probably until the first light bill comes in, and you can't help with the light bill because you have not found a job. And I've seen, again, in many instances, Madam President, where that person now, the family actually says, well, look, you are not paying your way here, you're not putting food in here, you're not paying the light bill, out you go, we can't have you around here anymore.
A greater effort is needed to ensure that the skill sets attained in prison can be converted to a career once the inmate is released. That's the belief of Senator Professor Sir Henry Fraser.
There are many people who have no idea that they have skills that could become professional skills and skills of the highest quality. The famous English portrait painter Augustus John did not begin to paint until the age of 60. There are artists in Barbados who are now teaching art, who are winning awards. We can ask Sir Trevor Carmichael about the Carmichael Awards, which are frequently won by people who have started to paint late in life. And so these are areas, Madam President, which I think we need to look at the rehabilitation process in service and the rehabilitation process out of post-service.
Senator Fraser also believes that a system needs to be created to supply people leaving prison with minor funding to allow them to establish their own businesses.
So that the individual who leaves Her Majesty's prison with a skill can then have some assistance, both professional guidance as well as a little bit of capital to set up a small business. This is part of the answer, and I think a very important consideration for the rehabilitation of people who may have to work on their own simply because of all the reasons why Senator Bayar-Suku indicated that people do not wish to employ previous offenders. Many of these individuals can make an enormous success of their life if they go into an entrepreneurial activity based on the skills that they have learned during in-service rehabilitation.
Independent Senator Alwyn Adams wants Barbados to look at other jurisdictions that have made it legal to carry small quantities of marijuana.
that kind of scourge that we would have on our young people could in fact be eliminated. And very often, those young people actually end up in prison, and with their record, and with the stigma that goes with it. And so the merry-go-round, or the not-so-merry-go-round, goes along as well. And therefore we need to consider that as a measure, at least to deal with it at that level and keep quite a number of our young men out of prison.
Okay, we'll take a short break here and come back with more news.
Come to Shoemax for all your ladies' shoes, dress shoes, gold, silver, red, bronze, casual, work shoes, shoes for nurses, wide wave shoes for maximum value on footwear. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram.
It's Christmas at the Kingsley store on Roebuck Street. Visit them today, spend $200 or more and get a chance to win one of their 3 grand prizes. A $1,000 food voucher, a $750 food voucher, and one $500 food voucher. Yes, shoppers, the competition is on at the Kingsley store on Roebuck Street. Come on down and shop today for the holidays and cash in on their big savings. Cupboards, divan.
If you are diabetic, then monitoring your food intake is vital. Join the doctors this Friday and let them keep you on track.
CBC Presents, brought to you with the compliments of Glucerna. Hunger Smart.
A St. Thomas man has been remanded to Her Majesty's Prison at Dodds on gun and ammunition charges. He is 58-year-old Leon DeCosta Hoyt of Pori Spring. Police say Hoyt appeared before Magistrate Ian Weeks in the District D Magistrate Court today, charged with possession of a gun and 7 rounds of ammunition. This occurred after members of the anti-gun unit executed a warrant at the residence occupied by Hoyt. During the search, the firearms and ammunition were discovered. Hoyt was remanded to prison to reappear in court on January 10th next year. Rising costs are negatively affecting the Barbados Cancer Society's fundraising efforts. This is evident in the reduced profitability of its main initiative, a car raffle, which means less money for the Critical Cancer Treatment Center. This was highlighted as the prize was presented to the lucky winner. Kareem Smith has more.
David Williams drove away in a brand new Hyundai Grand i10 saloon after being declared the winner of this year's raffle. He says it's the first time he's won anything.
We're winning right now. Vegan.
Other prizes won range from a North American trip for 2 to a solar water heater. President of the Cancer Society, Dr. Dorothy Cook Johnson, says the charitable organization, which provides a myriad of free services to cancer patients, relies heavily on fundraising initiatives to survive. The car raffle has long been the most profitable, but recently the amount of money generated from it has been drastically reduced.
About 3 years ago, the duty which we used to be able to get on the car was withheld because it was necessary economically for the island.
The raffle tickets have remained just $2 from the 1980s when it started. Now, Dr. Cook Johnson is thinking of ways to restructure it.
I think the cost of medications, particularly some of them that you would have to take on a repetitive basis for year after year to control a leukemia or lymphoma type of illness that you have, and they may be costing up to about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and you need them repeatedly. That's very difficult for the government under the circumstances to do, but they do try to do it. Or you can try to find some similar drugs which have the same effect or similar effect and utilize those as well.
In addition, Dr. Cook Johnson says a sharp increase in the cost of cancer treatment has made the situation all the more difficult. Despite the challenges, she says government and management of institutions like the Queen Elizabeth Hospital must be commended for their unwavering commitment to local health care. It's a commitment the Barbados Cancer Society has also made and strives daily to honor. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Santa Claus returned to the Christchurch girls for yet another celebration of giving. Compliments the Sandals Foundation. This Yuletide season, hundreds of children will be presented with gifts. Christchurch Girls' School's 497 students were among the first other schools receiving toys through the Toy Drive or Milton Lynch and St. Lawrence Primary. It was an extra special day for the infant students as they were handed the gifts by Santa himself. Public Relations Manager at Sandals Barbados, David Hines, says the drive is part of the resort's way of saying thanks and giving back.
The reality is some of these kids may or may not have a Christmas present, so this is our way of playing our role in the community as well. So this happens every year across every Sandals property in the Caribbean.
After the break, we'll take a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region.
Can you crack the Quartz code? Spend $799 or more and you could win $15,000. Check Quartz on Facebook and Instagram or your digital phone for your weekly Crack the Quartz code clue. Each week until December 22nd, you could get a chance to crack the same. But to crack the 3-digit code, you must know the clue. So listen out. Plus, the Quartz Crack the Code crew may be on the road near you where you can win cash and prizes on the spot. Quartz, bringing value home.
It's your favorite time of year again when everyone is cleaning and fixing and painting. So, are you holiday ready? Harris Paints is celebrating 45 years of color. Get 45% off all Perma products, 30% off all Ultimate Plus, and many more. Plus, for every $50 you spend, you get a chance to win a grand prize of $10,000 cash. You can also win one of 45 prizes of Farmer's Choice hams, gas and grocery vouchers, and Harris gift cards. Get holiday ready with Harris Paints, the Caribbean champion.
Here comes Asa. Inspired by a true story, this series is set in 19th century Japan and tells the story of a woman who overcomes adversity to forge a path in the world of business. A heartfelt, humorous drama and romance. Here Comes Asa airs Tuesdays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. on CBC TV 8.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
In Jamaica, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Winston De La Haye says a probe has started into the deaths of 2 residents of the St. Thomas Infirmary in Morant Bay. The 2 unidentified residents died within a 24-hour period, and the 3rd person has since been hospitalized amid speculation that the situation may have been as a result of a bacterial infection. Dr. De La Haye said the focus is now on preventing a spread of any bacterial infections at the infirmary. The 2 residents of the infirmary were reported to have died last week. A member of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force is assisting police investigations into the death of a toddler who died at a hospital last night following a domestic disturbance. Police say the soldier was detained after he had gone to visit his daughter but had been prevented from doing so by relatives of the child. There are conflicting reports as to what caused the death of the 2-year-old child, with some media reports indicating that she had been shot and others claiming that she had fallen from the arms of her uncle during a dispute in which her father pulled his gun and fired a shot. The child is reported to have died while undergoing surgery. The uncle was also reportedly shot and treated at the hospital. The authorities have not released the names of any of the people involved in the incident. The Center for Disease Control in the United States says there is no positive case of unusual hantavirus spread in rodents in hurricane-battered Dominica. So says Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Johnson. Late last month, health authorities said they were awaiting confirmation of a preliminary test to determine whether the island had registered its first case of the virus. Dr. Johnson said there had been no cases in the Caribbean in the recent past. Sylvester Bryant Byrd, who served as the 2nd Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, has announced his retirement from active politics. Sylvester, who was born on February 21, 1938, served as Prime Minister from 1994 to 2004 and replaced his father, Sir Vera Byrd. Sylvester said he intends to remain available as an advisor to the government should the need arise. He has endorsed his niece, Maria Byrd Brown, the wife of Prime Minister Gaston Brown, as his successor.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
Well, Sports News is next with Mark Seal, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Always check to see if there are persons loitering around the ATM before you use it. This crime prevention tip is brought to you in association with the Royal Barbados Police Force.